The iconic Mono SunSub range was first released for sale in 1996. Since then, the SunSub has developed into one of the most reliable and widely respected solar pumps in the industry. The following video is designed to provide instruction on the typical procedure for troubleshooting and replacement of worn components. Remember, safety first. Before any work is done, it is essential to cover the front of the solar array with a blanket or any other suitable material to completely stop electricity being generated. The output voltage from the SMC to the motor is 180 volts DC. Therefore, always unplug the SMC from the array before working on any electrical wiring or on the SMC or motor cables. The solar array must be fitted with a switch socket to accept the plug from the SMC and to ensure that the system can be completely isolated from the power source when required. When installing or removing the pump from the borehole, always use suitable lifting equipment to prevent injury. And never handle electrical connections when they or your hands are wet. Electrical shock can occur. To begin, we must check which revision of the model we are repairing. There have been a number of revisions of this pump, and we must be sure of which model we are working on. The etching number, which can be found here, will give you two different sets of identification numbers. The first is the pump model and revision coding, which will obviously be needed to understand what replacement components are required. And the second set is a unique serial number which will be used with any warranty paperwork. We begin the disassembly procedure by firstly removing the 4 nuts and spring washers holding the motor housing to the pump casing. The motor and the drive assembly is then gently extracted from the pump wet end. Carefully remove the motor's electrical lead at the plug, and it's at this point we troubleshoot the motor. Now we move on to check the rotor and flexi shaft for wear and source new parts if required. It's absolutely vital that we do not damage the green halo coating on the flexi shaft. It's the halo coating that actually protects the flexi shaft from corrosion, and so obviously damage to the coating can lead to fatigue failure of the flexi shaft. Attempting to remove the flexi shaft by gripping it with any metal tool will destroy the coating and void the warranty. Now, to remove the rotor from the flexi shaft, unscrew the rotor with a spanner on the flat on the rotor and a second spanner on the flat on the motor shaft. And if the flexi shaft unscrews from the flexi shaft adapter and remains in the rotor, it will be necessary to carefully grip the exposed metal between the thread and the green halo coating. Now unscrew the rotor using 2 spanners on the flats to break the Loctite seal on the rotor or the motor end of the flexi shaft. Be aware that there will be an O-ring at either end of the flexi shaft, and if either or both ends are unscrewed, then the new O-ring replacements are recommended. Using a pair of Stilsons, remove the foot valves from the stator, but again do not use a vise or Stilsons on the stator housing under any circumstance. Damage to the outside of the stator tube can result in the loss of performance and even a complete seizure of the pump. Using Stilsons and pipe strap tools, remove the stator from the barrel. A handy tip here is to use a strip of emery tape rough side in between the stator barrel and the strap tool to make it grip. Now we inspect the stator for signs of wear, and if wear such as this is observed, it's necessary to replace the stator. Please note though that if it is necessary to replace the rotor, it's recommended that the stator be replaced at the same time. All remaining components such as the pump barrel, sockets, motor adapter and stabilizers will need to be assessed for replacement at this time. The following sequence is to reassemble the pump and to replace any worn or defective components. Firstly, tap the rubber stabiliser onto the barrel using a rubber mallet. Wipe stag sealant onto the thread screwing the socket to the barrel. Coat stag sealant on all other pipe threads, including the thread on the stator, into the socket. Be aware that equal threads should be seen on either side of the socket once completely screwed in. As explained earlier, it's vital that you protect the stator tube from any potential crushing forces such as vices or Stilsons. Take care when fitting the stator to ensure the orientation is correct. The stator will usually be stamped with to suction end, which needs to face the barrel and be away from the non-return valve. Again, after brushing stag onto the threads, screw the non-return valve into place. Coat the flexi shaft threads with anti-seize, insert new O-rings into the rotor head and screw them into place. Using spanners on the rotor and motor adapter, tighten the threads. However, take care as you tighten the rotor and adapter against the flexi shaft, as over-tightening can lead to bending the flexi shaft, thereby rendering it unusable. Next, we insert the motor plug. The motor plug must be replaced with a new O-ring and sealant grease. Now wet the rotor and stator and carefully insert the rotor through the motor adapter and barrel, taking care not to touch the sides as this could damage the halo coating on the flexi shaft. Finally, assemble the 4 spring washers and nuts that hold the motor to the pump. Tighten 2 opposite each other first to ensure a correct alignment. Remove the 4 nuts and spring washers connecting the pump to the motor, taking particular care of the earth connector. Next, pull the pump off the motor, being careful to pull in a straight line so as to prevent damage to the flexi shaft halo coating. Now wet the rotor and the stator and carefully insert the stator and flexi shaft through the motor adapter and barrel, taking particular care not to let the flexi shaft scrape the sides as this could damage the protective halo coating. Locate the earth connector over the most suitable stud, being careful to position the lead so it won't foul the motor adapter or casing. Finally, refit the 4 spring washers and nuts and tighten. Tighten 2 opposing nuts to align the adapter to the motor first.